Hello, everyone, and welcome to Concordia University's ForSpace. Thank you for joining us for today's event, Game Design for Regenerative Futures, and with the Innovation Lab Sandbox crew. So to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from ForSpace, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. At ForSpace, we work with our university community to mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities to examine research questions and projects in development here at the university. We're going to be running this event as a live streamed meeting, so we welcome your comments and questions with a raised hand or via the chat if you're joining by Zoom. And for those of you in the space, if you'd like to participate, you can just let us know by raising a hand and we'll be sure to get a microphone to you. So with that, it is now my pleasure to pass the microphone to Professor in Education and Director of the Innovation Lab, Ann-Louise Davidson. Welcome.
Thank you. So welcome, welcome to today's event on game design for regenerative futures. Today's event explores the intersection of game design and regenerative agriculture. Just as a point of reference, regenerative agriculture focuses on sustainable farming practices that enhance ecosystem health and resilience. And it involves things like understanding context, and I can surely tell you that I've been understanding context in the past 2 weeks with all sorts of bugs eating my sprouts, minimizing soil disturbance, maintaining soil cover, promoting the biodiversity, keeping living roots in the soil, and integrating livestock. I'm going to introduce a couple of people around the table. I'll be co-animating the event with Scott DeJong, Ph.D. candidate and Innovation Sandbox leader, also an expert in game design. Mike MacGillivray, who is a regenerative agriculture farmer who is showing up online from Kirkview Farms in Dalkeith, Ontario. Rebecca Tittler, who is a lecturer and research coordinator at Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability. Sébastien, to my right, who is a biodiversity designer. And not yet arrived is Jean-François Messier, biofarmer and egg producer, who was on his farm this morning and he's just on his way, so he will join us shortly. We also have the Innovation Sandbox students, Courtney, Blamey, Nathalie Duponsel, Victor Montero, Alison Mazoff, and Burcu Olgin, who is online today because she has a cold. The instruction was not to show up if you are sick. So thank you, Burcu, for that. And the students will be showing game prototypes. But to get started, we're going to have a conversation about regenerative agriculture. And I guess the first question I would like to talk about is what is the potential of what you do? And maybe we can start with Mike about regenerative agriculture.
Well, thank you very much for the invite to attend this event. And so the biggest thing about the potential for regenerative agriculture is it can impact climate change, it can impact health, it can health of soil, health of plants, health of animals, health of people, and of course, health of our communities. So it has a huge amount of potential, and it's got these 6 main principles that we work off of that guide us. And I think it's actually, the problem is sometimes people think it's overly simple, but it is actually complex in how it gets applied. But definitely has huge potential to change the way we look at food and how we look at food producers.
Could you just maybe refer to one of the complexities of one of the concepts or one aspect of the concepts that comes to mind? Maybe just since you woke up this morning.
So the integration of livestock. And again, when you integrate livestock, you also want to add the diversity aspect. So when you're adding a component, there's multifacets to it. So the livestock integration, so getting the right mix of livestock, again, from a contextual point of view, that works with the available forages, that works with the land and works with the goals of the land stewards. So it's getting that figured out. So
Okay, thank you. Let's hand it over to Rebecca, who's joining us from Loyola campus today. Rebecca is an expert in sustainability and forestry, and I specifically invited her to talk about the importance of tree shrubs in agroforestry. So can you talk to us through the potential of tree shrubs or the potential of agroforestry? Because usually when we talk about agriculture, we talk about vegetables or we talk about livestock, but forestry is less of a spoken aspect. So
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I should say that I'm, largely a teacher and researcher rather than a practitioner. So it's fantastic to have Mike here and others who are actually practicing on the ground. I'm a forest ecologist by training. My doctoral work is in forest ecology. And I've always been interested in the role of trees and woody shrubs in all kinds of systems, but in agricultural systems, particularly moving forward into a climate future, a warmer climate future, a potentially drier climate future, a climate future with precipitation at different times of the year, a climate future that leads us to more uncertainty in agricultural sectors in terms of what's going to work this year, crops, that kind of thing, an interest in biodiversity and diversity of economic diversity, I guess, as well. And incorporating trees and woody shrubs and tree blocks there are some traditions here in Quebec, right, of keeping the back 40, and windbreaks, woody windbreaks and things like that. But we're moving into more and more research about things like intercropping and having different types of trees and woody shrubs as part of agricultural systems, recognizing that they can provide us with, store more carbon, provide us with habitat for greater biodiversity, and therefore potentially contribute to pest management, that they can help us in Quebec in particular to maintain, potentially, to maintain water in the soils for longer as we move into this year is a perfect example here in Quebec where we had little snow in the late winter, which is something that we're probably going to see more of in the future. And what that leads to is less moisture in the early spring in the soils. And tree cover can help to maintain that moisture. Also, create rain patterns and things like that. So I'm very interested in the potential of using trees and woody shrubs more deliberately and in some different ways than we have traditionally done here in Quebec in agricultural systems. And from the economic perspective, it gives potentially a separate source of revenue for farmers, right? Looking at forest products as well.
right. Let me push a little bit on the potential, alternative potentials, because you started alluding to that. And as I'm planting the corn, I'm very concerned with the pollination and making sure that I have nice corn that's fully grown, and that requires full pollination. And I was wondering, what's the potential of bringing in tree shrubs such as honeysuckles, which do attract a lot of pollinators? What's the potential, and maybe what are the cons of such a practice? Would you want to do a whole full fence of honeysuckles, or would you want to vary it?
Yeah, so I would definitely want to vary it, and I would want to steer clear of honeysuckle because it's not native, and it can also be invasive. I would look more towards native pollinating species. If you're looking at just native species of trees and shrubs that can provide habitat for native species of insects and birds. And you'll say it's funny of me to mention birds in this context and insects other than pollinators, but the research does indicate increasingly that having a diversity of insects in agricultural systems, not all of whom are pollinators, can increase the efficiency of the insects that are pollinators. So there's research, for example, that indicates that bees will move more between plants if there are a variety of hoverflies and birds that are potentially competition or predators, to make them move more and therefore be more efficient in that role of pollination. So there are all kinds of interesting combinations that we can look at in terms of what we should be planting where, but I would really steer clear of non-native species, especially those that are already deemed invasive, but moving into climate futures, you know, what we're dealing with is a whole lot of uncertainty. So there's always a lack of clarity as to what could become invasive. Invasive species is dangerous for native biodiversity because it outcompetes native biodiversity. We also have to consider eco-colonialism as well, that we have, you know, we have a tendency to bring, as European settlers or wherever we come from, to bring all of the plants that are native to where we came from and plant them here. We have perfectly functional, beautiful native ecosystems, plants and animals here that we need to foster.
I wasn't aware that that honeysuckles were an invasive species. So thank you for pointing it out. They've been around for such a long time that I was sure that, you know, they were part of our ecosystem. But thank you for clarifying that.
Milkweed is a fantastic alternative.
Yeah.
The pollinators will love it. It grows like crazy easily. You might want to think about whether it competes with the crops, Mike. That's more your expertise. But there are a lot of native options.
Yeah. So can you repeat the name of the tree that you just mentioned?
Milkweed. It's not a tree. It's a perennial.
Milkweed. Oh, milkweed. We have tons. Okay.
Milkweed about now when it's blooming and you just hear it. It's just buzzing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'll hand it over to Sébastien about biodiversity design. So tell me what the potential of biodiversity design is.
So it takes for me 20 years to understand. I'm artist of designer of biodiversity in space-time. So in fact, I'm a farmer and agronomist. Okay, but I started my career with organic farmers, but I all the time to be a regenerative, try to combine different cover crop, because right now the master mindset in agriculture is monospecies by space-time. It's mostly leadership of extraction. And for me, regenerative farming is to be in a relationship with the life and nature. So when you have a relationship, you need to give and take in this, you know, in balance. So for me, that's what is the regenerative farming. You're in balance, what you give to the land, okay? And we cohabitate biodiversity in the same space-time. An example, I'm mostly field crops farmer. Okay, my master project right now is a pumpkin seed for snack market. Okay, I designed this project with Prana. They commercialize the product, but I produce this with 5 other farmers in Quebec. But the first maybe big project was a corn, like 60-inch corn solar corridor system. Usually we grow corn at 30-inch space row. Okay, and I convinced 20 to 15 farmers to try to wide the space of row, 60-inch, and put cover crop between them. Cover crop is the plant we plan to use the niche for ecosystem to give to the soil needs, mostly because regenerative farming is more soil health. Is a master mindset. So how you can bring diversity to increase soil fertility, okay? And what the soil needs, and cover crop is so important. And I convinced a farmer to try this to widen the space and put cover crop, and you make more money, okay? And for me, is a Pareto law. Okay, you know Pareto law is that you use 20% of space to take 80% of your revenue, and you have 80% of space to give back to the land and bring some diversity in flower and stuff. That's for me a good example. That's defined what the regenerative farming is. And if I incur in pumpkins, the technique I use is usually we till the soil to control the weeds. So this year we grow rye and every vetch. We drill this in September. They overwinter, and the spring they capture all the sunlight. They regulate the water and the flow in the soil. They reduce a lot of nitrogen emission, and they make a lot of carbon. Okay, and at this 25 until 5 June when it's blooming, we really crimp this to the soil. That's give me and that's protect for weed control and give the space to the pumpkins grow. and regulate temperature of soil. They regulate a lot. They feed earthworms. They feed a lot. This is, for me, is the way to be clever with nature. In fact, I collaborate with my friend Jean-François with the colored sourdough system and the pumpkin seeds too. So we are not alone. And also we collaborate a lot of agronomists and farmers in Quebec and we organize also a game. A game is like a serious gaming about cash crop, cover crop design with some farmer to help to how can find the best biodiversity to collaborate and find the best regenerative process on the field. So
right. So in essence, you can enrich your soil. You can improve your planting approach to improve the soil and at the same time improve your revenue.
But the soil health for me is like to be on the game. You have different level, see, and you level 1, level 2, and more you give your soil health, your earthworms coming, and you have different challenge and different level, okay. But when your soil health is better, you have less problem potential. You are more resilient. The water holding is better. So a lot of beneficial potential you get, okay? But it's not, it's a long-term asset. It's really easy, okay? And we need also to give to the land. It's not magical, okay? We need the earthworm is, and sometimes is the problem we get, okay? If the farmers start to the regenerative practice and compare to the conventional practice, usually we have 20% loss yield, okay? Because it take maybe 3-4 years to soil health bring back, okay? So the earthworm is not happens by magic, you know. We need to give, okay? First, it's like to be in a credit card system to go on placement dividend mindset. You know the example I give, you know. It's you need to make the placement to get the dividends, but the dividend you get is the problem you don't have mostly. So.
Bonjour Jean-François. Bienvenue. It's perfect because now it's your time. So we've done the introductions and we were talking about the potential of what is it that you do, and in your case it's biofarming and egg production in the context of regenerative agriculture. And I was wondering if you could discuss a little bit the potentials that you see. Tu peux parler en français si tu veux, or in English, it's up to you.
Je pense que je vais y aller en français. Je me débrouille en anglais, mais là, je vais peut-être un peu plus tard dans la rencontre. Bien, merci de l'invitation. Merci à vous d'être là. Comme tu as résumé, je suis producteur d'œufs de consommation. Je fais aussi de la culture. J'ai un 120 acres en culture que j'ai choisi d'aller vers l'agriculture bio. Mais mon passé était dans beaucoup de travail en semi-direct, donc dans un travail d'aller dans les sols, mais en réduisant l'utilisation de la machinerie, des charrues, d'aller planter directement dans le sol, puis en utilisant un peu d'herbicides pour être capable de contrôler les adventices, les mauvaises herbes. Et j'étais moins à l'aise avec les herbicides, puis le challenge du bio, de l'opportunité, je voulais aller là. Par contre, je vis le deuil de travailler mes sols. Je vois les pratiques de Sébastien, les pratiques de plein d'agriculteurs aux États-Unis, d'apporter plus de biodiversité dans leurs champs, plus de culture, de travailler moins les sols. Et la façon en agriculture biologique d'aller combattre les mauvaises herbes qui vont venir nuire à la culture principale. Bien, en conventionnel, on va utiliser des herbicides. En agriculture biologique, on va faire beaucoup de passages de mécanique pour venir détruire les mauvaises herbes, donc travailler le sol beaucoup. Donc, je vis un peu ce défi-là de dire comment je peux à la fois amener plus de biodiversité, puis en même temps, j'ai pas l'outil du chimique pour être capable de faire le contrôle des mauvaises herbes. Donc, c'est les timings d'implantation, c'est quoi les plans de campagne. On va parler souvent en milieu urbain, on va parler de permaculture, on va faire on va aménager un lieu pour être capable de faire vivre différentes plantes ensemble en permaculture. Moi, je le vois dans l'esprit d'un champ. Donc, comment, dans un champ où il y a des rangées de maïs ou des rangées de blé ou de soya, mais comment, quand mes rangs, je peux faire vivre des plantes de campagne sans nuire à ma culture principale. Donc, c'est ces réflexions-là que je partage avec Sébastien, qui est devenu un ami dans les dernières années. Et c'est la même montagne souvent que je lui dis, sauf qu'on ne passe pas par le même chemin. Mais on a des efforts semblables, on a des déceptions semblables, on a des challenges. Et je suis très admiratif des gens qui relèvent le défi d'améliorer les sols, d'augmenter la biodiversité, que ça soit en continuant d'utiliser des herbicides. L'enjeu, c'est pas tant de tous devenir bio, l'enjeu, c'est d'être capable de protéger nos sols, régénérer nos sols par rapport à tout l'impact climatique que ça a. Et c'est un défi aussi grand pour les gens du conventionnel que pour les gens qui sont bio, tant qu'à moi. Donc, ça, je partage ça. Donc, je reste attentif aux bonnes pratiques de gens qui utilisent moins d'herbicides, qui travaillent différemment, puis ils m'apprennent beaucoup. Donc, c'est ça.
So you referred to it as a process, and it's very interesting because all the conversations I've had with Mike in the past were all about how it's a process and it's trial and error, and there's a lot of learning, and that's why I asked him, like, what was your challenge this morning? Because I know he's a farmer, but he solves problems as a living. That's basically what happens. You also referred to companion planting, and this is something that Rebecca just alluded to just a little while ago in terms of the proper choices of trees. And I was wondering, Rebecca, if you might want to just maybe give us some recommendations about companion planting in trees. So what would be those tree shrubs of choice? Of course, milkweed, if Monsanto has not gone into that field, then we will find milkweed, and we're all aware of that. But what about tree shrubs companionship?
Yeah, so I mean, there are obviously different trees and shrubs that will do better or worse in different circumstances and depending what the need is. But there's a lot of work and use of things like willows that grow really quickly, that filter water really effectively, that provide habitat for pollinators, as well as for birds that might control, little warblers that might control insects that you wouldn't want in your crops. So willows are great. They grow very fast. Also, as a source of revenue, they can be cut and used for particle board these days. So there's uses there as well. Red oaks are planted often because they're native and they grow quickly. They're not as good habitat for pollinators, but anything that's going to provide habitat for anything native is good, because if you bring the birds in, the birds will help control the insect pests and will also potentially make pollinators move more. White cedars. We have white cedars. We're trying to get them to grow around the gardens at Loyola here on campus, because we have a problem with Japanese beetles in our gardens, and cardinals. Japanese beetles are not native. Cardinals are one of the native species of birds that eat Japanese beetles, and they nest in white cedars, which are native. So another good option for around here. So it depends on, the use. What we want to avoid is anything that's not native. There was a period, particularly in the States, where there were a lot of Russian olives planted, for example, because they grow really fast. They're a poplar, so they also spread really fast and they're invasive. Things that grow quickly can sometimes outcompete native species. So look for the native species that grow quickly, those that provide habitat for actual pollinators, fantastic. Those that provide habitat for other organisms that might, help have healthy ecosystems, fantastic as well.
Mike, can you run us through the biodiversity aspect of animal grazing, and you said diversity of livestock, but you also refer to your cows as solar-powered, carbon sequestrating, nutrient cycling, high-density protein producing bovines. And when you said that, and we were all standing in the field with the cow poop and looking at what they had done after they changed pasture, we suddenly understood what you meant by it. And I was wondering if you can expand a little bit on that beautiful word the descriptor that you give to your cows.
Sure. But the first thing I'd like to do is just, Rebecca, I think it's great to talk about the agroforestry aspect. We actually incorporate that into our farm. We planted over 10,000 trees now, and started planting a lot of shrubs and stuff as well, just from diversity in the landscape as well as in the fields. So our bovine companions that do this great job of and we use rotational grazing. That is what gives that result that you saw in the field. And the whole idea is that we want to produce very nutrient dense protein, and we do that through focusing on the soil. We improve our soil health. We do the things to put armor on the soil, to protect the biology in the soil. And the cattle, of course, are assisting the biology in the soil to create healthy plants. Protect themselves against disease. So there's less chance of having to deal with that aspect. A lot of people use the terminology weeds, but for me, any plant that's edible to a bovine is not a weed, it's feed. So, and they usually have a purpose. They're there for a reason. But yeah, so our cattle are our partners in this journey of trying to increase our soil health. But we've also incorporated sheep. We have sheep now. The neat thing about them is they have a different foraging profile. So they're looking at different plants and helping convert those plants to take the sunshine from them, put it into protein, and cycle back a different nutrient profile. We also use poultry as well, because they give us a really good nitrogen boost. So we look at that from a diversity point of view. There's many different forms of diversity. It's not just in the plants, but in the landscape and in the animal partners that we're using. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And all of you, this has been really a great conversation to listen to. As someone who's not overly familiar with regenerative farming until about a month and a half ago when Ann-Louise was like, this is what we're going to do and we're going to learn about. It's been fantastic. But Ann-Louise has a question here that's like, what is the most misunderstood thing about what you do? But I kind of want to rephrase it a little bit for those who are farming of like, I have now been sold on the values and benefits of regenerative farming. And you told me earlier that you've been doing this about 20 years, Sébastien. And so what is the difficulties in others not engaging in these practices? Like what's stopping the industry from catching on, and what can be done to kind of help your practice of regenerative farming become more commonplace within the space in the industry? And I don't know if you can speak to that as well, Rebecca, but you're welcome to join in as well. But I thought maybe I'd throw it to you first, Sébastien, because you have been doing this 20 years. I don't know how long you've been doing this, Jean-François. But yeah, please.
It's a big question. What is the issues to bring to go to regenerative farming? So, yeah, sorry, because English is not my first language. Sorry. I think for right now it's the recognitions, the money recognitions is not there right now. Okay, it's we have the issues of the measure because sometimes soil health is a long-term asset. Okay. And when you give, you don't have the security you will get the dividend. Okay? An example, I've used a 60-inch corn example. The farmer, they go in, they have 20% loss first year. So for them, it's a loss. But we have a win on the soil health. We don't measure it. correctly. So we miss this. We need to measure it, okay? And we don't. It's impossible to get value we don't measure. So that's the big missing part we have. And for me, the other regenerative farming is a transformation, okay? Example, in organic, we measure with the thing we don't put, we remove, okay? Regenerative farming is more focused, I think, and we measure more what we have, okay? And also in an example in organic farming, we measure farm is the same denominator. For me, regenerative farming will be, I think, more on space, time, design approved, okay? And this design, we have three: carbon, water, and biodiversity flow. Carbon, we are, and I think on 80%, 20% of the value, 80% usually we get the farmer get the money from the volume and the price of the product we produce. And I think 20% of the value can bring from carbon, water, and biodiversity asset. Carbon for the climate action, energy, water, for example, insurance, because water will be the biggest unknown of the year, okay, and impact a lot of stuff, okay. And I think the farmer they have more soil health, they maybe less risky from the climate, from the water. So I think they can pay less for insurance because that's less risk. And for the biodiversity, for me, is the customer asset, because the customer understand, have more sensibility for the trees, for the bees. You can, and the market, and the customer is a big. This is a big point. The customer assets is a big power. Organic is based on that, okay. And I think, in my vision of future, the farmer have the best carbon, water, and biodiversity signature. They get maybe in the future the best asset for the market, and those points. Maybe Jean-François can speak about that.
Other challenge we have is about they have a lot of research. They have a lot of information about how farming. Sometimes I have the feeling the university start again and again the same kind of study. The problem is social adoption, adaptation. We don't need all time a new study. We need to have a space for a prototype. We need a space to have a chance to learn a place. It's a learning curve, and you arrive with the scientific way to. I have the study where that's the plan. We build that. Okay, nice. You did that on the space like the table. You don't practice that on my field. You don't practice that in Ontario, in West Canada, in South America. It's how I will adapt this practice in my field, in my soil, in my temperature, in my equipment. Manitoba produce pea with the equipment completely different where the equipment I have to produce pea. So to build a way to add cover crop, add cover in between the row, if we don't have the same row spacing, it's an adaptation. I need to adapt my equipment. I need to adapt my practice. And how I will do that? How the farmer with other agronomists, with other person will do this social work, will build a community. My point is how build the community to make adoption, adaptation. And I'm here because you invite me, but in the same time, you talk about gaming. You talk about an idea to, with a level like Sébastien talked, to learn, to make a new, to share a new idea, to practice something, and to have the chance to learn from the mistake. And it's important to have a space to make new things together. It's not just a new study will tell me do that, not do that, a new rule, it will be a new obligation, because what is my toolbox? I need to have new practice, new way to thinking about the problem, and it's a learning curve. And how, with gaming, I can do that. I think it's a good way to make social change when we play together a serious gaming.
I mean, I think a lot of us would agree on games. You're talking to the right audience for that one. But what you say is really interesting. I hadn't thought about like the different even distances of the rows of pea plants between here and Western Canada, which is something that just never come to my mind. I wanted to just give Mike or Rebecca a chance to respond to that question, and then I think we're actually going to showcase some of the games that we've been designing. But Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
Sure. So just this was a kind of an interesting question. So the misunderstanding aspect, the first thing that jumps to my mind is, okay, well, the one thing that people talk a lot about is scalability, right? Is regenerative agriculture scalable? And it absolutely is. Like, we're working on that. We've increased, we started this 6 years ago, started with 6 cattle, and we're now up in, 200 and some head. So we're going to prove out the scalability. But I think fundamentally, and this it applies to Sébastien, the pumpkin seeds that he's making, Jean-François, the eggs that he's producing, Rebecca, for any of the fruits that the fruit bearing trees are providing, is we haven't measured nutrient density, and that's one of the biggest challenges, I think, is and misunderstanding people have is, if you purchased a fuel for your car that give you triple the mileage, you'd be willing to pay more for it, because obviously your cost of operating that vehicle is going to be significantly less. So there would be a premium for that. The challenge we have as producers is, if we produce pumpkin seeds or eggs or steaks, and you put them on a plate, you can't tell the nutrient density of that product by looking at it. If you eat it and you're in tune, you will pick up on the difference in the nutrient density or on how it fuels you. But people actually have to try it then. So I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings is that whenever you produce really nutrient dense products in a manner that's ecologically beneficial to everyone in the whole process, is that there's this benefit, and we just need to quantify that. So I think that's where I would go.
That's great. Rebecca, did you have something to respond?
Yeah, just quickly, I won't take much time, but with including trees and shrubs and agricultural systems, we tend to think of them generally as separate, especially with the dominance of industrial farming. So it's a question of space, right? Getting people to understand that giving up space for a crop and making more of a long-term investment, because trees take longer to grow than corn. So is it going to be worth me sacrificing a little bit of the land that I could grow corn in to plant, some trees or shrubs? So having that, that vision, even if they're fast-growing trees or shrubs, it takes longer than corn, right? So having that little bit longer-term vision of providing some resilience to the ecosystem, some resilience to the economic benefits to that system, providing some climate resilience. Those are longer-term goals than the what am I going to produce this year that I'm going to be able to sell. So that's a challenge we need. In startup investments for farmers to, be able to sacrifice a little bit one year, a couple rows of corn to put in some some other vegetation, and really help people to understand how it might benefit over the long term. So I mean, the power of games to me is educational. A lot of it is educational, right? But you can also think about modeling potentials. And thinking about modeling some of those benefits and how long it would take, and having to benefit from the trees, and a teaching tool and a learning tool at the same time in that way.
That's great. So before we move on to the demoing the game prototype, in case some people start to leave, I just want to pass a message that not only am I learning on the field, and I really mean that I'm learning on the field this time, it's not a joke, and I am struggling with a lot of things about the context, and have to redo some things that I'm learning very fast, but I'm making mistakes very fast too. So if anybody's interested around the idea of having a living lab of pastures, or living lab of gardens, or interested into gamifying or summer education for preventing the knowledge slide. You know how in the summer we always want to tell the kids to bring their math book home and to study math so that they don't lose some of the knowledge that they gained? What I propose is that we do this in community gardens, on farms, in a variety of locations where biology and physics and so on are learned through experiential learning rather than through the books. So the summer is a good time for that. If anybody's interested in reflecting on this, I'm all ears, eyes open, and I'd love to have a conversation with you, because there's going to be more about that in the Innovation Lab in 2024, 2025. So that's an invitation. And we have some comments online that I just want to address. Justin Solis, I think, is it somebody that we know, is very interested in the game mechanics, and the space-time aspect of regenerative farming would lend itself well to turn-based game mechanics. So that's kind of interesting. And it's also more practical. So he also said that while I agree that the benefit of serious games are mostly educational, it also might be more practical in terms of allowing producers literally play with the balance between short-term versus long-term benefits. In his honest opinion. So, and Sébastien agrees here. So there'll be more of that. I'm going to hand it over to. I want to thank the speakers who took the time to come today, online and in person. Thank you so much. You will definitely be hearing more of me, Rebecca and Mike, for sure in a short time. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott, who will demo his game, and we're going to run the recording for a little while. But after that, more prototypes will be shown. And I wonder, is this a good time to get people to
Yeah,
talk
I
about
think
them?
very briefly before we run a game, and before people who are online, because it's going to be hard for you to watch a game online, you're welcome to obviously stay around, but you might be interested in hearing the variety of games and game tools that the Sandbox has created over just a month, which is really 4 3-hour sessions. And so if the team members are willing to come up, we'll do it one at a time. And I think Ann-Louise is going to open up her chair for each of you to come. I'll just go in order of who's closest. So Courtney, if you want to come up and just give like a quick summary of what you created in the time, just so people who are curious and want more info, we're happy to provide that.
Yeah, so I based my game, it's kind of like using the D&D kind of model where you have a dungeon master, in this case, I guess a farm master, and a player, and they play as Pecan, which is inspired by Pecan, the Jersey cow on Mike's farm, as she's trying to make her way to the wild field. And the idea of this is that you encounter different farm animal, different plants, mycelium as well, and you have conversations with them, and within that you learn a little bit more about what regenerative farming is and what it's trying to do through like all of the different pieces that are happening, but also all of these farm animals are helping Pecan to like be like a meta-narrative as well as to like what sort of a system that supports each other can do. So yeah, that's kind of.
And if I remember correctly, Pecan's story was something in that tension of like conventional farming towards regenerative farming as well?
Yes, so the whole thing is that she has pink eye, and Farmer Mike doesn't want to give her antibiotics because it will impact her milk. And so there's also like this time sense too of like how long before antibiotics have to be given as a way to deal with the pink eye versus like her dealing with it naturally as part of this ecosystem that she's a part of. So yeah.
Awesome. It's very cool. So Courtney has that behind us and she'll show it off in a second, but then I'm going to have, Natalie, now you've moved closer, so clearly you want to come next. So please come on up and tell us very quickly kind of what you've been working on for the past few weeks.
Absolutely. So we actually decided to target the very young children, 3 to 5-year-olds, so pre-literate and probably not very familiar with farming in general. So we just developed a series of activities that they can go through because they're a little too young at this age to participate in collaborative gaming and play. But we just wanted a series of activities that highlighted the importance of working together with nature, and that when we work with nature, good things happen. So just, little activities with little lessons that highlight that.
It's 6 activities, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, which is incredibly cool to begin with. You have 6 already in just a month. So yeah, that's over at the table there.
Yes.
For people interested. And then the last is a duo team coming up. Please come to this. But do you mind? I'm sorry. Perfect. And you two have been especially talking about that space of conventional versus regenerative farming. That's a theme that I remember you've been working a lot around.
Yeah. Our purpose was to create a game that would show how these two kinds of farmers, they operate, and without trying to villainize one or the other, but just explaining the benefits of one and how one can be has a greater focus on the longer term and soil health, while the other one is more like production and output, not necessarily the quality, like Mike was saying. It's just output, the numbers of crops.
Right, and initially when you start, you see that each one is different and they both have different challenges in getting to where they want to go. But in the end, what they need to do is make money so that they could survive to the next season. So there's difficulties in that in regular farming. It's quite well known, but in regenerative farming, it's even more difficult because you're kind of on the side of the major operations and you're kind of doing it yourself, but also it's a longer game and there's more planning. I'd also like to point out this idea started off as a drinking game idea. It's not a drinking game right now anymore, but I think it's good to point out that you can make a game out of any sort of idea. And for this one, I'm happy with how it came out.
Yeah, it turned out great. And I should just mention that your other teammate, Burja, is on the call, who did some great work as well. So we're going to briefly play the game that I've been working on, which is like a tile placement game, because it's like in a beta prototype stage. We'll play it with, if you're willing to play, Jean-François and Sébastien. And then we have the station set up, and we'll do some kind of free play after that with everyone. So thank you so much. I do need a 4th player, though. I don't know if Ann-Louise, you want to jump back up here and play? And Sébastien, please come on over. I'm sorry to have kicked you out of your seat before. So I know that the ForSpace had a top-down camera that I think we'll be switching. Oh, they're incredible, this team here. Thank you again. It's like poker. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, except for there's no gambling here today. So the idea of this game is that we're working as a team. The idea of the game is that we were also I was designing for a bit of a younger audience, not 3 to 5-year-olds like Nathalie, but more like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. So they can kind of get some of the ideas of how we want to have a variety of different crops and animals working together to kind of improve and manage soil health. But I didn't want to make a card game. Actually, Burja had some inspiration about talking about Tetris with me, so we made more of a tile game, which you can kind of see we have these like Tetris-like tiles that have prints of different crops on them to try to represent that. And so we're working together. The narrative is that we are pigs that have overthrown a conventional farm, but we have to still be able to make enough money so that we're not caught each season as we try to grow the farm into something more regenerative. So how it's going to work, and I'm going to be doing this as I'm holding a mic, so bear with me. We have this kind of track over here, which has money on it, and then harmony. Harmony is kind of representing soil health. And so as our soil health goes up and our money goes up, once they meet in the middle, the game will end, and we'll see how successful we have been in building our farm. But part of how the game works is it's a tile or it's a worker placement game. So if you've ever played those before, you're going to have a little token and you're going to just put it on a location and then the thing will occur. And it's meant to be as simple as that. So I'll pass everyone a little token. Here you go, and here you go. And we have like a turn tracker for like what's happening, which is representing, like I just used moons as a way to show that, but we're moving through the seasons as we go. So I'll briefly explain the locations in the game and then we'll just kind of play it for a few minutes. And then if we want to keep playing because you're just so engrossed, we can keep doing so. But so anywhere you see that kind of shape, it's a location that you can visit with your little pawn. So here is our farmland itself. We have a bit of a soil bed, but there's not much on it. And so we need to add soil to do that. So we are pigs who have overthrown the farm. And so pigs, as I've learned, are natural tillers or plows in some capacity. And so if we go here, we can add some soil to our farm. So we can just grab a soil bed and we can grow our prepared soil. Now, obviously, soil is great and all, but we need to put, as you've said, cover crops on it alongside other crops to do so. So the way we can get crops is there's a marketplace over there that has 4 locations, one where we can gather seeds, one where we can trade what we've earned, which can be our money or our food, which all the crops will make food. Unfortunately, I don't have a different type of food for every single crop. There's specialty tiles, so if we want to build pastures on our farms, we want to build ponds to attract ducks, or we want to put a chicken coop in, we can pay someone to do that for us. And then if we are really desperate, we can buy fertilizer to immediately kind of gain some food so we can survive. I don't recommend buying fertilizer because it will lead to some negative consequences later in the game, but if we have to, we have to. And so that's the market there. If you want to plant the seeds that you gather, you just have to go here to plant a seed. And last but not least, there are animal friends that might want to join us at the farm. And so if we go here, we can reveal an animal friend. In this case, it would be a donkey that would help keep predators away. But there's a variety of animal friends that could join the farm. They each have a condition that they want us to meet. So the donkey will join your farm if you have another animal already on your farm because they'll protect that animal. Whereas like a cow would want you to have pastures that it can then go to. Does that make sense for the most part? Kind of, yeah, a little bit, hopefully. So we're just gonna kind of start playing it. I know that you probably don't understand everything, and that's okay because that's every game when you start playing it for the first time. But I'll go first, or maybe Ann-Louise can go first, and we'll go around the table. I realize the table is quite long, so if you have to stand up to place your piece, or if you want to come beside me because it's closer, you're welcome to do that as well. Yeah, I'm also, for those online, it's going to be hard for all of us to talk into the mic, so I do apologize for any audio cuts. So, on your turn, you take your little token and you put it on any of the locations. All the plants that we have, by the way, they do have different things when they're harvested, which we'll worry about when they do, but they do things pretty much, they're either going to give you money, they're going to either provide cover, some of them have a little umbrella on them to show that they provide cover for other crops. That is forest. You can put in forest. The cover is the umbrella, which you'll see on some. So this is alfalfa. It has cover. This is oats, which is a cover crop from everything I learned. And then these ones also will attract pollinators and such. We have a mic stand.
What is this one?
That's a really bad example of a pond because the graphic was really poor. But it's a pond. It will help you get ducks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this one?
That's a pasture. Yeah. Cool. So Ann-Louise, you can take your pawn and you can put it anywhere.
I can take my pawn.
Your little
Yep,
token.
perfect. So I'm going to buy seeds.
Okay.
And,
so you can buy one for free, and then if you want, you can spend some of our money to get more.
Is it okay if I spend money to get more seeds to get started? So,
Yes.
okay, so I'm going to give you that. So I'm going to get some corn, and I'm going to get some, what is this, Scott?
That is canola. It will attract pollinators, and it harvests primarily for money more than food.
I'm going to get some beans. Oops.
Okay.
So we
And
have
those just sit. We can just put them on top of there, and when we actually plant the seeds, they'll go there.
canola, and we have corn and beans. Okay.
Okay. So that's all your turn is. You go do a thing, and then the thing occurs. On my turn, I like having friends, so I'm gonna go and get some specialty work done for the farm, because I like a pond. So I'm gonna grab us a pond, which we can just put right there on our farm.
We designed the same farm.
We're all working together. Yeah,
In the same farm.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
That's a big tweet.
Yeah. We're not all separate farms. We're all one farm. We're all doing different things to make sure the farm
So we
comes
designed
together.
together a same farm.
Exactly. It's collaborative. It's fully collaborative. Now, there are going to be events and natural things that will occur that might make what we're doing a challenge. So it's not just we sit here and put tiles down. There are some challenges here. So it'd be your turn. You have some choices. You could add some more soil to our farm. You could plant what Ann-Louise has purchased, but know that like they're not really gonna, this one won't really fit. This one could fit.
Do you have tools to work on the field?
Do we have tools to work on the field? We will assume we do.
You assume we
Yeah,
do
we have
it,
everything we need. So if you want to prep soil, you just go there and we'll prep the soil. We have all the tools to do that. If we want to plant seeds, we just go there and they'll happily be planted.
Sorry, because we are really deep on the small
No, I know. We have every tool you could possibly need. We are so ready to go.
The tool is, I will choose a seed.
You want to plant them?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll put your, if you can reach, or I can do it for you. And then Ann-Louise has purchased these 2 different seeds for our farm. So which one would you like to put into our soil?
What kind of seed?
So these are beans. These are,
This is squash.
that is squash.
Okay.
Yeah. Alfalfa, asparagus.
Asparagus.
Yeah. So Ann-Louise grabbed these seeds for our farm because those are all in the market. We don't own those. We own these ones.
That was a bad choice though, because I didn't pay attention to the shape.
But this is a very perennial crop.
Yes, that's why it has the snowflake on it, so it won't go away.
Okay.
Yeah. I got you.
I will take alfalfa.
Well, so unfortunately, we've already purchased our seeds. If you want different, so like that's what Ann-Louise did on her turn, is she gathered seeds for us. So she gathered us beans and corn.
Okay, so
Okay, so
I'm not sure what I need
Yes.
to do now.
No, so we're all working together. On Ann-Louise's turn, she went to the market to gather seeds for us, and she chose to gather beans and corn.
Okay,
So you can't go to the market because she's there right now.
okay.
But if you want to plant seeds, you can plant anything that she did buy. So you can plant the beans that she had, and you can put them on our farm.
Okay, I will,
that make sense?
plant bean.
And because they fit, it's okay, right? The corn, it wouldn't really fit, so we'd have to till or prepare more soil to get the
Okay,
corn.
I need to build a space
Exactly.
to in my plan or
Yeah,
space
we need
in
to,
my-
'cause
the
we're a
farm.
team.
We need,
Yeah.
yes, we need to build a space to build to have corn in the plan. But
Exactly.
to start,
We got some
have
beans.
only place for beans. Now I will take beans. on
Exactly.
planting that.
Makes
So
sense.
in the spirit of collaboration, if I had been really collaborative, I could rewind and say, what do we want first,
Yes.
right? So I jumped in without asking, is there something we would want to start with?
Cover crop.
Cover crop?
'Cause you
Can
need
we
to put-
rewind
to
the
bring-
game?
You bring to the fertility first.
Okay.
But pea could be a
PP or
cover
bean-
crop too.
Soybeans can, it's okay, because corn needs a lot of nitrogens in the system.
Okay, so we need cover crop.
The cover crop to bring the
Alfalfa.
So we'll bring the
Alfalfa-
alfalfa in.
alfalfa is-
Alfalfa and
First.
pea will
Okay.
bring you more nitrogen
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
system.
So the
gonna be more
alfalfa will help the
regenerative.
soil health. That's what the
Okay.
heart means on it, if you plant it. So that was Ann-Louise's turn, my turn, Jean-François' turn. So now it's your turn, Sébastien. You can't go anywhere where we already are, but you could plant the other seeds, but they're not going to fit.
Yeah, but how can buy a new
You just prepare soil. So you just go here.
Yeah, okay.
And so because our farm soil isn't overly great right now, it's not good soil, like it's just the soil from the conventional farm we took,
Okay.
we can only add these long ones.
Okay,
As we have more harmony, or as our soil health gets better, we can add bigger plots of soil because we have better soil to add, if that makes sense. So you can add this.
okay.
Where would you like it to go? This is the shape we have.
This is half?
No, it's just the printer cut it.
Okay,
This
perfect.
is a beta. That's why.
That's okay, this one.
Okay, perfect. So that's the end of a round of the game. Then we would all get our tokens back. We'll have a different color, that's fine. And the moon phase would continue. If we have any animals, they move on their grazing pasture because we have to rotate our cows and our grazers so that they actually have things to eat. But that doesn't matter, so then we go again and we continue planting on our farm. Does that kind of make
And
sense?
then when we get an event, for example,
Yes.
let's say we have
Would you like an event?
an example of an event, yeah.
Drought.
That's happened.
There is no water. If you do have a pond, which we do, you gain harmony because it protects our farm from a drought in some capacity. Otherwise, we can't plant again until there's another full moon, which is quite a harsh penalty, I realize. That's an example of a drought. But so like these events are all based off, if you have the thing, your farm will be okay. Like if you've built a symbiotic relationship or a regenerative relationship, the farm will be okay. If you haven't, bad things will happen. So there's other ones here that are like, if you have 3 different types of species, or if you have cover crop, you won't have erosion of soil, and stuff like that. Does that make sense? So it's an example of an event.
So I gather that some of the details can be refined,
Yes.
but that's basically the mechanics of the game that we've been developing, and that's the beta version. The alpha version was much more complex. I think there's
The alfalfa version.
the alfalfa version, yeah. So the beta carotene version is better. One of the characteristics of Scott's game design is the complexity of boards, which allow us to extend a little bit more the educational aspect and the strategic thinking and the critical thinking. So that's the critical game design genre that has been developed. So this is definitely something that I think we can continue. We had one round. I think maybe what we can do now.
I think we should show off the other games
Show
as
off
well.
the
And
other
if you guys
games,
want to look at this more, I'm happy to explain it more. But the general idea is that we're working together. We only have so much time to do so many actions. So we have to think wisely about what cover crops do we need? Like, should we put cover crops in first so that the soil is protected when we have it? Or should we put our cash crops in and hope for an early harvest before we get punished by a bad event and those kind of things? So it's meant to teach that you want a farm with a variety and you want a farm that's symbiotic and how it works together. Whether it does that or not, that's what we take after the beta and test. But for now, we're just playing around with design models.
An example, you arrive with drought. It's possible I need to destroy my cover crop earlier because they have drought.
Yeah.
To planting my cash crop. It's not a linear, c'est pas une ligne droite et continue. C'est beaucoup de, we need to build a tree of decision. And they arrive something, and the card I have is the value of my next step is different because drought happened.
Yeah.
And it's possible my P will I will turn my P will be a cash crop to say, oh, it's an opportunity to plant in my P and to turn my P in the cover crop.
Yeah.
That's kind of decision the farmer did every spring, every year to something play with the mistake and say, oh, okay, I don't have time to have replant my pea. It's too late. It's true. Not enough water. The opportunity is to turn this crop. It don't have enough water, and I will turn my crop in cover crop. Yeah. And it's kind of complexity, and we need to take a decision. When with my son, with my father at the farm to make the decision. It's what is the opportunity, what's the issue, and we need to build this kind of decision tree to arrive at the solution. And
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, the events are very like simple right now, but they're trying to get a little bit of like, if you made that decision, but perhaps there's design ways to have more of that choice. One of them, which kind of hints at that, is like you have a salesperson come and they try to offer you samples of a new fertilizer. And it's like, if you take the deal, you get something immediately, but if you don't take the deal, you get a long-term benefit. And so it's meant to give players those choices. But hearing you talk about that might be something to put even more of into the game. So thank you.
And sometimes somebody arrive with the price for the crops, the price will be the double from before. And I plan to use my pea for a cover crop, and somebody offer me more money than the cover.
Yeah.
What's the opportunity? Build my soil?
or
So what do you-
cash now.
what do you choose, though? Cash?
And we need to choose to have more cash for the next step,
Yeah.
or I will take time, lose
Yeah.
possibly a little bit money and build the soil.
And the reality of farmer is always to be millionaire broke. You know?
Yeah,
Because the value of farm is really high, but the cash flow of farm is always issues.
Yeah.
Because cash flow is really raw. So a lot of decision on farm is depend on how cash flow is.
Yeah. It's good to know. No, those are really helpful just from a design standpoint to adjust the game for. So thank you. I don't want to take away from the other games that are here and the fact that you're both here to see them. So I'd love to give you a chance to see what the other students have been working on. But I'd love to chat more about this later. So thank you.
Thank you. So regenerative agriculture is a problem-solving job every day and give and take, and nothing is black and white. There's nuances, complexities, and you're dealing with concepts, you're dealing with you're using your experience and you're trying to anticipate things, but a lot of variables that you don't control.
It's like the example I give is to drive an airplane. You have a dashboard, and when you drill, it's like takeoff. You know, it's you're driving on the sky of an altitude, and when and for me the example when you harvest is like the landing. Is the timing? Is everything? No, that's you need to understand that.
Right. And that's what we referred to during the pandemic when we moved all the courses online. We said we're flying the plane as we're building it. So thank you so much for our online audience. Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to continue with the prototype demonstration and receiving criticism, comments. That's what we need, right? Like in the beta version, we need as many criticisms as possible so that we can improve the next version and really turn them into learning products for customers, for students, and for farmers themselves. So on that note, thank you so much for showing up today. And I'll hand it over to the Fort Space team.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone at the Innovation Lab Sandbox, especially Ann-Louise Davidson and Scott DeJong for coming into Force Space today and for activating this conversation. For everybody online and those of you here in the space, thank you for your contributions as well. We're going to be closing up the Zoom and the live stream now, but a quick reminder that this conversation is already available on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit or share it. So please join us again at Force Space. We love having you. And for those of you in the space, let's hang around and play some games. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.